If you shower or brush your teeth or try to make your hair look presentable, here's some good news. Dollar Shave Club has a lot of stuff to help you out. Dollar Shave Club delivers everything you need to look, feel, and smell your best. Shampoo, conditioner, body wash, toothpaste, hair gel, even a wipe that leaves your tush feeling tingly clean. All of Dollar Shave Club's products are made with top-shelf ingredients that won't break your budget. You'll feel the difference. Plus, shipping is free with your membership. And here's a great way to try a bunch of Dollar Shave Club's products for just $5. You can get their Daily Essential Starter Set. It comes with Body Cleanser, One Wipe Charlie's, their amazing butt wipes, and their world-famous shave butter. And their best razor, the 6-Blade Executive. Keep the blades coming for a few more bucks a month and add in a shampoo, toothpaste, or anything else you need. Check it all out at dollarshaveclub.com/Chad. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Chad.
Independent in thought and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
They entered the location, and I can tell you there are multiple fatalities, multiple injuries. Among the victims is one of our sheriff's deputies that responded in that initial call, as well as the shooter. So right now the scene has been made safe. Our investigators are in there, and it's really in the preliminary stages of piecing all this together to determine the sequence of what happened, how things went down.
An awful night. You know, these are one of those things, you go to bed and you wake up, and I get up extra early, and then all of a sudden, you know, my phone's blowing up, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And in this day and age, because of Trump and politics and the rhetoric and this, that, and the other, you no longer is like, how many, what happened? It's, okay, how political is this going to be? And that is completely insane. And I'm sitting here watching right now, Thousands Oaks, California, behind me on the televisions, the officer, Ron Hewless, who a 29-year veteran who was killed, the first responder there, who got off the phone with his wife, told her what he was doing as he responded there. He went in and he was killed, and he is now being taken from there to the medical examiners. People are lining the streets right now. He's in a hearse. It is a horrible situation. You have 12 people that were killed, 13 if you count the shooter, and we'll touch on the shooter here in a second. And listening to Jeff Dean, who is the sheriff out there in Thousand Oaks, and I know exactly what it is. I used to live right there. Not too far away, the bar, borderline, big bar. It's one of those places where they have a lot of huge events. Dice Clay played there last week, and each night's a big night. Last night was 18 and over, country western nights. A lot of college kids that were there. The Beach Boys have played there. I mean, it's a pretty big kind of establishment right there in Thousand Oaks. Very, very uber upper scale. That area, Thousands Oaks, Calabasas, Newberry Park, into the Ventura area is very she, well-to-do. You're talking, this is where the producers, screenwriters, directors live kind of area. And it was an awful, awful situation. A bar full of young kids having a good night at country night when in walks a guy, and he's just decided, for whatever reason, don't know what it is, he's pissed at the world, and this bar in particular seemed to be the place where he was going to take out all of his anger.
For 11 victims, I will not count the suspect as a victim, the suspect, and then Sergeant Helis.
So 11 victims.
11 victims, the suspect, 12, and Sergeant Helis makes 13. Sergeant Helis was on the force for 29 years, was looking to retire in the next year or so. He was a Moore Park resident and is survived by his wife and his son. It's a horrific scene in there. There is blood everywhere, and the suspect is part of that.
Yeah, and at first people thought, well, I thought it was a guy who was of Middle Eastern descent, and whoever it was, he knew what he was doing. He had a Glock, and he had modified it so it could carry more bullets. It's a horrific incident, and it was another awful incident. And who is the guy? He's been identified. Normally we don't do this, but I will tell you this. I will play that what they say he is, and I won't say his name.
The suspect was identified as Ian David Long, I-A-N, David Long, the birth date of March 27th, 1990. He was 28 years old.
Yes, former Marine, spent time in Afghanistan, had a lot of issues, had 10 medals apparently he had won, and people, they knew who he was. They did. They absolutely did. And what took place in April should have maybe keyed somebody in that he had issues. A lot of people that his mother said, neighbors said his mother lived in fear of what may happen to her, but also what may happen to him. That he was mean, but he wasn't violent towards people, but he was mean. He dropped out of school a year or two ago. He was studying at Cal State Northridge. People said that he would go to work out at the gym, and then he would want to try to learn dance moves, and he would be dancing at the gym. And then they would go home, and he would turn his music on in this garage, and he would just dance for hours. And I don't know. But in April of this year, there was a run-in with the police and the shooter.
They called out our crisis intervention team, our mental health specialist, who met with him, talked to him, and cleared him, didn't feel that he was qualified to be taken under 5150, and he was left at that scene last April.
Yeah, so the neighbor said that they heard something, and then there was a couple big bangs. They were concerned. They called. They came out. He had kicked and punched holes in the walls. He had broken furniture. And a lot of people thought that he had PTSD, and his mother did as well. But he refused to get help, and that really worried her. Again, he had 10 medals. He toured Afghanistan. He was a Marine for 5 years. He was discharged in 2013. They didn't say he was violent. They said he was mean. He was a loner. It's it's all of the things that if you're going to paint a picture of somebody who does something like this, this is the picture you have. This is the poster boy. It's like when we talk about like serial killers, right? When they bring in people to put together profilers to profile what a serial killer is, I can tell you with certainty exactly almost 99% of the time what it is that you're looking for in a situation of a serial killer. It's usually a middle-aged white person, white male, right? I don't want to leave women out because they can, but because, in this day and age, we're going to do it with this. Somebody who many times is above average intelligence, who has issues with women, impotence, things. They start to pay, and it's very simple. They start there and then they build. They start there and then they build. And this is the kind of thing when you look at somebody who's suffering from PTSD, from depression, who had obviously some sort of other issues. It was awful. And other people are saying that this guy knew everything that he was doing. He used smoke grenades, and he was just methodical in everything that he did.
I just started hearing these big pops, pop, pop, pop. There was probably 3 or 4. I hit the ground. I look up. The security guard's dead. Or I don't want to say dead, but he was shot. He was down. And the gunman was throwing smoke grenades all over the place. I saw him point to the back of the cash register. And he just kept firing. I ran out the front door. I hear chairs being thrown out the window. People were trying to get out the window. And the gunman went behind the cash register. There was probably 12 shots before I got out the front door.
Yeah. And the officer that arrived, Helis, when he arrived after Virginia Tech and after Columbine, it was no longer they had changed everything. Because when you listen to Virginia Tech and you listen to Columbine, what they did is they set up a perimeter. So the person inside had carte blanche to do anything because he knew at that point in time, whoever that person or persons were, that they could do everything they want. And if their whole thing was to kill as many people, then instead of take hostages, you setting up a perimeter or just capturing essentially the prey inside and allowing them to do whatever they want. So they changed all of that after Columbine and then Virginia Tech, which is once there are 2 officers on scene, you go and you engage. That's because how do you stop a bad guy with a gun? A good guy with a gun. And that's what took place there. And it's a horrible, horrible thing again. And when I was talking to producer Anthony earlier, you think about this, California, upper scale. I mean, this is that you're heading up to the Central Coast. You're an hour from Thousand Oaks is one of these places where you're an hour from Los Angeles. You're an hour from Santa Barbara. Right? It is a well-to-do. I bet you the average house there goes for well over $1 million+ dollars. Newberry Park, all of these places. It is the upper end of she kind of thing. And California, when you think of gun control. This guy purchased the gun legally. He modified how many the gun could hold, and that's something they're going to look at. But when I was talking to producer Anthony earlier today, I said, with some of these shootings, it's nonstop on all of the 24-hour news. It's nonstop. But it's California. They got gun control. The guy's obviously got mental issues. We can't blame this on Trump. So we'll cover it at the top and we'll do 5 or 10 minutes. And then we move on to something else because there's no there for them to make a political statement. Because you're not going to go after handguns because you've promised, gun control people have promised, we don't want handguns and we're not going after shotguns. This was a handgun, so we can't go. I mean, and that's the thing that has amazed me in a lot of this coverage today. And the other thing, listening to Jeff Dean, who's the sheriff out there in Ventura County, he was good friends with him. Ron Helis, the officer, lost his life. But he was going to retire next year. They were talking about that. He's been an officer for 29 years. He was going to retire next year. Jeff Dean, who is the Ventura County sheriff, he retires at midnight tonight. So think about all of the years you've worked, all of the things you've done, and on your last day, this is what you're presented with. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. A lot of stuff to get to today. We're going to touch on all of it. We're going to touch on the Acosta thing, what took place, the stripping of his. And people say, oh, they're banning CNN. No, they're not. They're just saying Jim Acosta can't be a part of these things anymore as the White House press. They're going to take away that. CNN can send other people. We're going to touch on that and the difference between Obama and Trump and how not only they were covered, but the transparency between the two, because each administration screams how transparent they are, but how transparent was the predecessor who said he was going to be the most transparent of all time? And did he do anything like this? Maybe he did. Plus, Matt Whitaker, who is this guy? The guy that is taking over for Sessions. Is it a good thing or bad thing for the country? Depends on who you talk to. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us, the Chad Benson Show.
Deep states? No. Deep doo-doo? Yeah. The Chad Benson Show.
Guys, run! Go! He's coming out this door!
Just awful today. It's just a horrible thing. And again, the political side of it is the fact that there is no political side. It's a handgun. It's California. They got lots of gun control. What do they talk about? All this gun control. And still happens there. And it's going to happen again. And as long as human beings are alive, there are going to be situations that are going to be ugly and evil. Go back through history. Look at all of the things that human beings did to one another long before there were guns. Sacrifices, all kinds of horrific things that people did to each other. It's not the gun, it's the human. That's the reality. It is not the gun, it is the human. And I think the more that we understand that, the more that we can try to figure out about humans, how they operate, whether it's a mental illness or whatever it is, the better it'll be. But this is a horrible, horrific situation that happened. But as I was talking to Anthony this morning, 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago, that horrible shooting in Pittsburgh, nonstop on television. This happens, and because there's nothing to tie Trump to, and because it's California, it just seems like it's such a secondary thing. It'll lead the news, but instead of being on for 99% of it, because there's no politics, and remember, it's the politics of hate and divisiveness on television for the news that sells it. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. And that's sad. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. New rules.
Current law lets immigrants apply for asylum regardless of how they enter the country. But now President Trump is changing the rule to say if you enter the country illegally, you cannot request asylum. The Trump administration saying only those who apply at a port of entry will be considered. Mr. Trump expected to sign that proclamation Friday.
That'll be interesting, and that'll be another fight. Of course, DACA today went against Trump, but those kind of things are to be expected. He wants to get it to the Supreme Court.
For now, more than 700,000 undocumented immigrant children can keep working in the U.S. without fear the government will deport them. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals agreeing with the lower court, saying that President Trump cannot just end the DACA program protecting those children. Mr. Trump has now lost a number of Dreamer court fights. He plans to appeal to the Supreme Court.
And that's what's going to happen. And he thinks now, hey, I've got a 5-4 decision, and we'll get that decision in our favor, and we'll go from there. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Medicaid open enrollment is here. Do you have somebody that's going to help you walk through these important decision-making things that are happening in your life? AMAC's going to help you with that. If you don't know what AMAC is, they're amazing. Association of Mature American Citizens. They're essentially the conservative alternative to ARP. They believe a lot of what you believe in, and the way that they handle business is second to none. Reform for things like immigration, they support that. They're going to politically advocate for you, and they're going to help you out. They've partnered with Senior Resource Network, and they're ready to help you out. Here's the beauty of all of the stuff that they're going to help you with. On top of that, they've got all kinds of benefits just insane benefits. How about this? 40% off movie tickets. That alone's worth it. Retail, restaurant, hotel discounts. Amusement park discounts up to 40% off Disneyland, SeaWorld, things of that nature. And, oh, by the way, for you, it's a year free. That's it. A year free. Try it out. See if you like it. And you're going to find out you love it. And they're not even going to charge you. They don't want your credit card. All you have to do is sign up. Go to amac.us/Chad. That's amac.us/Chad. amac.us/Chad. AMAC is better for you, better for America. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter, ChadBenson. A lot of stuff still to get to. But how about this? Let's change it up a little bit. Paul Limon, our tech nerd, is going to join us. We're going to talk about everything from, magic mushrooms to foldable phones. Oh, kids, let's have a little bit of fun, shall we? I think we need it. I do. I think it's been a long week. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
When it's open, it's a tablet, offering a big screen.
Senior VP Justin Dennison says Samsung is preparing to roll out flexible screens that can be folded in half without breaking. The foldable screens could increase display space to the size of a mini tablet, but then fold like a wallet so they revert to the size of regular phones. Smartphone sales have declined in the past 12 months. People are holding on to their phones longer because of the high cost of new phones, and new models really aren't that much different than their predecessors. Samsung says it will be ready to hit the market at some point next year, with the cost expected to be over $1,000.
What? That sounds like a lot. We got to find out exactly what the hell that is, and when we need to do that, we turn to only one person. He's a tech nerd like no other. From Where Play, joining us now is our tech nerd, Paul Limon. And What is a foldable screen? Because I've heard this is not the first time they've talked about that, but this is different because we've talked a little bit about phones that may be able to do that, but this is like you could be a big tablet and then we're going to fold you down to a phone. Is that how that works?
It only has one fold, but yes. The idea is they're creating screens now that are almost the thickness of a poster that you can just hang on the wall. So because they've gotten so thin, they've created a machine that allows you to build it on a flexible plastic. And with it on the flexible plastic, you can fold it just like a book. So it can open and close like a book. You can fold it, and that means it increases that screen, doubles its size.
That's nuts. Now, what's it made of? Like, because that's always a big thing. What is it made of?
It's made of magic. No, it's basically
awesome.
a flexible piece of plastic. That's really all it is. But they've learned how to create the computer screen within the flexible plastic. So these plastics we've had around forever. You can bend plastic because they're kind of like they're flexible. This is the breakthrough, the ability to turn it into a computer screen and then be able to use it and it doesn't break and you can flex it and it knows it's flexed and it knows not just orientation like landscape and portrait, but it knows if it's open or closed.
That's awesome. Here's my thing with something like this. That is, when I heard this, and I talked to a couple of people around the newsroom today about this, because they saw it on TV, the thought that came to mind is, well, how good is the graphics and how good is the screen going to look? And is it going to easily get scratched? And, because we all know everybody drops their damn phone every once in a while. And there's, how many people out there listening right now have cracks on their phone and you guys get little shards of glass in there. So the thought process is, well, okay, this flexible plastic's good, but is it going to look kind of cheesy?
Well, my worry is it going to be too thick to really put in the pocket comfortably. But if not, think of it. It automatically protects your screen because you fold it like a book. So you open the book and you can read it, and then you can fold it like a book, and it potentially could protect your screen that way. So it could have a built-in security feature in a way. The other thing I think is really amazing about it is the fact that when you talk about gaming and you talk about some of this stuff, the larger the phones, the better you can game on them. So it could be a giant boost to gamers and more maybe niche audiences because they can have the convenience of a small phone and then they open it up and they can be gaming on this larger screen.
That's crazy. And as we all know, with the games, especially with Fortnite and all these games that everybody plays, and I read a stat today that about 3.5 to 4 billion people have access to the web, of which 93% of those people only access the web via mobile. So this would be huge if you could have something like this. Is this a game changer?
It's potentially a huge game changer. And it's not coming out of Apple. It's coming out of Samsung. It could literally change how we deal with our mobile devices. Because a lot of times you'll have your phone and you'll have your iPad or your pad device. If this becomes both, even at a starting price of about $1,300 is where they're saying the starting price will be, that's cheaper than buying two different things.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And that's huge.
Absolutely.
It's
because you're only buying.
It's my phone. It's everything.
Yeah, you got your tablet and you have your phone, and it's all rolled into one, where normally you'd spend, like if you were going to buy an Apple, maybe you have an iPad and you're spending, $800-900. I don't know what those things cost. And then you're spending $1,000 for your phone. And so you're spending close to $2,000, and you could get this for one shot. And we know this is just starting. So 6 months from now, it's going to be $800. And,
exactly.
and that's going to be huge. Talking to Paul Limon, our tech nerd here. Let's switch from there to aliens. Harvard put out a report that there was a massive meteor-like thing that went by us, and one of their speculations was, and I found this to be interesting, is it might have been a meteor, but it could have also been life forms that were a lot smarter than us that were just kind of checking us out to make sure we're still here because maybe they're going to harvest us. I don't know.
It's an alien probe. That was part of the speculation. And the reason why, and it's very interesting, is because as it went past the sun, it sped up. And so they tried to question what would speed up when it naturally would either curve to the gravity of the sun or slow down. This sped up when it went past. So the speculation was, what if it's a craft that uses solar sail technology that harvests the power of the sun to create movement? And as it went past the sun, it sped up because it's some kind of alien probe. That's interesting. It's probably nothing like that. It's probably simply some kind of meteor or something, but it is not something from our solar system. That's what is kind of cool. It is something cool. Outside of the solar system, and it would have been nice. It's all long gone now, so we can't even see it on telescopes. It would have been nice to figure out what it was.
Are we going to have that Giorgio guy that's going to come on and talk about ancient aliens? Because this feels like something he would love to talk about, but he only likes ancient aliens. Like if a new alien showed up, I don't think he's going to get into that. It's like
if this would actually have been some kind of probe, if it actually could have been somehow where we could have proved that maybe 1 million years ago, that's how long it probably could have taken for this to get to our galaxy. Something was sent this way, but that's what I wish it was. That's what we know it probably is not. It's probably a big old rock, a weird shaped rock, but a big old rock.
Yeah, probably a big old rock. Talking to Paul Limon, our tech nerd here. I saw something the other day, Paul, and we didn't talk much about this yesterday. We were talking about what we're going to talk about today, but I was watching Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was talking about this, and I've heard 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 other people talk about this, that we're basically the Sims for other worlds.
That we're some kind of simulation that is a test for other civilizations, which I thought is a very meta kind of concept.
That is so bizarre, but and it's funny because when you talk to people, big people, you see these people at MIT, people all over the globe that are really well-respected individuals who understand this like no other. They say the reality is they put it at a high probability that for all intents and purposes, we're kind of a video game for another world.
You know what I love about that? When you really dig down into it, it is their way of making sure there is no potential supernatural explanation for our existence, because a completely naturalistic explanation of our existence is hard to understand. So they have to show that looks like there's manipulation from something that wasn't natural. What is that manipulation? Oh, we're in some kind of matrix. We're in some kind of experiment. And to me, it seems like they're just dancing around the idea that human beings have believed in a divine intervention in the creation of the universe, and they're trying to find any other way to get around saying something like that. So we're a simulation. We're this, we're that. Because it does seem there's been manipulation that couldn't have happened just by chance, just by natural explanations.
Yeah, that's interesting, though. And there could be thousands of us, and maybe these people came by to take a look at their video game and thought that was really neat, and they headed back over their million-year drive, which seems like a long drive. Paul, we move from there to, of course, global warming, climate change, whatever you want. It's happening, but you can't blame everything on us, even though everything always gets blamed on us because we're the bad people, and our Sims game is going out of control. Like these Arctic ice are melting, and whose fault is this?
Well, at least in this new study, and it's a very large study, it's at least 50% natural. So everything man's doing, if we stopped everything we were doing, there would still be about 50% decline in the Arctic ice sheets because of nature. It's just what's going on. So it's very interesting because if you look at that and you say, okay, if it's that much is just naturally occurring, plus mankind say is upwards of 50% of that, if we cut 2 or 3% of that, it's really doing nothing.
No, it's not doing anything.
It's really doing nothing. So a lot of the, and you know what, the U.S. still leads everybody in reducing carbon emissions. So we reduce pretty much more carbon emissions than anybody else on the planet, where other countries like China and stuff are increasing all the stuff that creates the greenhouse gases and that kind of thing. So we are doing our part as a country. It's just, this study could say it doesn't really matter that much because as a whole, nature is going to do what nature wants. And if it wants to warm the planet up or if it wants to melt the ice sheets, it's going to do that no matter what we want to do.
Yeah, I'm always amazed. Like you go back and you look at places like you go to the vast deserts on certain continents and they're like, oh yeah, this used to be underwater and this used to be lush green and this used to be, and you're like, we're going to blame it on this, that, and the other because we always need to have the boogeyman, and the boogeyman is us. But nature is nature. And as producer Phil, what do we always say about nature?
Nature will mess you up
mess you up. And when nature's sick and tired of us, Paul, I've always thought they're going to get rid of us at some point in time. Last question. Appreciate you coming on. As always, we're heading into Christmas time. What is the big toy? What's the big electronics? What are people going to be doing for what's the big game and stuff that's coming out that kids are excited? Is it Red Dead? Is it Red Redemption? Is that huge?
Red Dead Redemption is a great game. That's a great game. It's a Western, so you get to play like you're in the Old West. It's an open world, which means you get to run around. You don't just have to do linear quests. You can run around and explore a gigantic world just like you're an old cowboy. People react to you based on your actions in the game. It really lets you – it's like living in the Old West simulation and then be able to shoot people with, like a gunslinger. That's a great game. And then Fallout is coming up with a new Vault 76, which is a multiplayer game where – if you happen to set off a nuke in the world, it affects me in my game. So everything we do is interconnected in these large scales. So all the players are playing like a giant game where your actions mean something to the whole community. So that's another one that I think is pretty cool. It's coming out.
And then, of course, you've got you still got the massiveness that is Fortnite that is rolling along, and everybody.
Fortnite's probably never going to go away for a very long time.
No. And then and as we talk nerd game stuff, because I just think it's fun, and on this day and right now, I think it's a good thing to escape sometimes of the wackiness of the week that we've had. Then my little brothers and people they're playing PUBG. They're like, Fortnite's fun, but I also like playing PUBG, and that was the game originally that Fortnite. Everybody says kind of they stole that game from them.
They 100% stole it from them. That game was put on what was called an early access. So they took PUBG and they said, hey, we're not really done with this and it's got a lot of bugs, but help us make it better. And people loved it. And they went from like up to about 30 million users over the course of about 6 months. Of course, Fortnite, which is a giant company, saw that and said, this is a great way to play a game. Let's redo it. And so they did. And look at PUBG is still on top 10 in PC gaming and I think console gaming when it comes to sales. But Fortnite just eclipsed it because they had more money.
Yeah, it's huge. It's crazy. Paul Limon, our tech nerd, as always. Appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you next Thursday. Have yourself a good one. And stay safe out there, Paul. That's all we ask you to do. And it's a shame that you weren't eating somewhere. Normally we have we whip around we call Paul. He's usually at some sort of restaurant. We were taking a bet only to find out today he was at home. Boo! 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Bomb fell. You want to look good. Somebody said, how do you sell clothes on radio? And I said, that's a good question. So if you're like me, I don't like to shop. Most of you guys listening out there, you don't like to shop. And ladies, your guys may not like to shop. So what are some of the things you can do? Bombfell's a company that's come out, and what they're doing is they allow you to go online. And rather than you just go, I'll take that, you go and they ask you, what's your style like? Are you cool? Are you hip? You dress like this? You dress like that? And you kind of fill out a small, very quick, easy, like, hey, I kind of more like this, and I look more like that, and I'm kind of casual here. And then what happens is you get your own dedicated stylist with Bombfell. My guy's named Michael. And they put together a bunch of clothes for you, and they ship it out to you. If you like it, you try it on your own home. You don't have to go anywhere. You keep it. If you don't, you ship it back. If you buy things that are multiple, boom, it's a winner chicken dinner. You get 20% off. Plus, this is the other great thing. Real clothes. I'm not talking about like you order something on the internet. Sometimes these are real, like the brands of the brands of the brands of the brands. These are it. You're getting the best. This is what I want you to do. Check it out for yourself. Go to bombfell.com/Benson. When you decide to order, guess what? You're going to save $25 off your order. Bombfell.com/Benson. BOMBFELL.com/Benson. It is incredible, and you will look and feel amazing. At Chad Benson Shows your Twitter, ChadBenson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
Interlace the fingertips. Follow your breath as you inhale.
A government survey conducted last year found 14% of adults said they had recently done yoga, and the same percentage had recently meditated. That's up from about 10% from a similar survey done 5 years earlier. And kids ages 4 through 17 are doing yoga. That's up from 3%. Meditation is up about 6%. Experts say yoga, meditation, and some other forms of complementary medicine have been increasingly promoted as ways to reduce stress and anxiety and improve health. So if you're doing a downward-facing dog, you're among the increasing numbers of Americans doing yoga.
Heck yeah. Now, I don't do yoga, but I do meditate. I try to about 5-10 minutes a day. It's good. It really is, you know. I mean, it is good. I try to do something every day because I think you need a stress relief. And it doesn't always have to be physical. Sometimes, playing sports and stuff is great, but it is good to do this, and we need more of this. And it's great for your mind. I don't think people realize how amazing the mind is. There is a study out that's the biggest study of its kind, and it's in Time magazine. I think it's New York Times magazine, and it's about the placebo effect, to talk about the mind. And what they're finding out is how real it is, that more and more doctors and more people it's the mind that heals in so many ways. That the placebo effect is absolutely real. It's not just luck. That, and if you don't know what the placebo effect essentially is when they do a lot of these blind studies where they'll give people the real medicine that they're testing, and they'll give people essentially a sugar pill or something like that, and nobody knows who's got what, and they see what happens. And what they're finding out is, while the drug may work, the mind works just as good. And if you can have a strong mind, it's amazing what you could do. It's incredible. And I don't think enough people do that. Yoga, stretching, sometimes just stretching and breathing. It's just so good. That's why people are always laughing around here, because I try to walk about 10 to 20,000 steps a day, depending on, how hot it is or what I'm doing. And it is awesome. It really is. Just frees your mind. Just a walk for 15 minutes and you're like, wow, this is awesome. It is. And meditation is the same way. Find 5 or 10 minutes and just breathe and relax, and you'd be surprised how good it is and how strong the mind is. And for all that we know about the oceans and space and all of these kind of things, the mind is incredible. And if we could ever learn to really harness it, whoa, kids. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us lots of stuff that we talked about. And again, we're covering this horrible incident in Thousands Oaks, California. It's just awful, and more are going to be coming out over the next couple days. And it's just another day in America that we're talking about something like this. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This maniac came in and started shooting at people for no reason at all. These people have never hurt anybody. He had a handgun. I could tell it was allowed, maybe a 44, maybe a little smaller, but looked up and he was moving to the right. He shot the front doorman, bouncer, like just a young man. And he shot the cashier, just a young girl.
Awful. What do you say? Another day, 12 dead. Bar in California, Thousand Oaks, for those of you who don't know where it is. It is a community about an hour outside of Los Angeles, a very well-to-do area. You've got, you're an hour from L.A., you're an hour from Santa Barbara. It's where a lot of people live money. This is not some just random thing. Third safest city in America. At Newbury Park, you've got Moore Park, you've got Calabasas close by. Then you get into the Oxnard, Ventura area. It is wonderful. It's a gorgeous place. And over 18, people having fun, country night, and out of nowhere, a man emerges and he starts shooting. And he starts shooting and he starts shooting. Killing 12. And the question, like every question we have for this, is why. We know who he is. 28-year-old former Marine, did some tours in Afghanistan, had 10 medals, was in the Marines from 2008 to 2013, and he was discharged in 2013, went back to school, Cal State University of Northridge, lived with his mother, and the neighbors said that his mother feared for herself and for him. He obviously had issues. April of this year, the cops had somewhat of a run-in with him because he was irrational and he was acting crazy. The neighbors called the police after they heard loud noises inside the house. He had kicked in the walls. He had broken a bunch of furniture. They arrived and they assessed the situation.
They called out our crisis intervention team, our mental health specialist, who met with him, talked to him, and cleared him, didn't feel that he was qualified to be taken under 5150, and he was left at that scene last April.
And today, people are waking up, hearing the news. Some people last night told their parents they loved them. Off they went. It was 18 and older last night. And the borderline is a pretty big place out there. They host a ton of events. Earlier in the month, you had Andrew Dice Clay did a big thing there. They do a lot of private functions. I think the Beach Boys and some other people had played there. And now the question is why? Why here? Why this time? And again, we've got kids that are dead, people that are dead, and all they were doing was enjoying themselves. And some of the people that were at the bar last night, because it was country night, happened to also be in Vegas during the Route 91 shooting when Jason Aldean was on, which is just absolutely insane. And on air, and this is gut-wrenching right here, on air, Jason Kaufman, who earlier in the day was trying to find his son, doing everything he possibly could. He was talking to Allison Camerado on CNN, and he said that they had one of those phone finders where you could, you're linked to somebody's phone and you know where they are. And he said that he thought his phone was inside the club, and he was hoping that his son had dropped his phone in the chaos of it all, but then he got the news.
You all know that I was been here fighting for him all morning long. And we did just get the news that he was one of the 11 that were hit and killed last night.
And it's just, he said the last thing his son said to him is that he loved him, and they talked last night. And then, just the sheer horror of what took place and how this happened and why this bar, why tonight. And PTSD probably did play something into this, and they've talked about that. And who knows? He was a machine gunner. Who knows what kind of action he saw? Who knows how it affected him? Obviously negatively. Why last night? Was there a specific reason this bar, they're going to comb through every piece of everything? They've got his car. I think it was his mom's car. They've got, they've already gone through the house. They've got warrants to do all of these kind of things, the social media and all of this stuff. And it's the never-ending question, right? It's why. It's the why. We look back at Vegas, and we will never have an answer as to why. This one, if you hear about this, his roommate in college said, look, he wasn't nice. He was mean. He liked to go into the garage, and they say he would turn on the music really loud. He would just dance around to the point where he was in a sweat. He was, one time somebody asked him to take out the garbage, and he said this was just an example. He would look at you and say, this isn't my blanking job, and he'd walk away. And they never felt threatened, but he wasn't a nice guy, and he was a loner. And if you're going to put a poster child of what you should be watching out for, this is it. And people aren't going home. And on top of all of this, you had a officer that was the first one on the scene. And when he heard what was happening, he went straight there. He called his wife, and he entered. And the way they do things now, it's much different. After Columbine, after Virginia Tech, they changed the way they engage. Because Columbine and Virginia Tech was set up a perimeter. Well, if people are inside and you're setting up a perimeter of somebody who's already killing a bunch of people, all you're doing is stepping back until they run out of ammunition and they've killed everybody. So now it's go and engage. 29-year vet was killed. And it's absolutely awful. This is Thousand Oaks. This is the Sheriff Jeff Dean out there in Ventura County talking about the people that were killed, including the officer.
There were 11 victims. I will not count the suspect as a victim. The suspect and then Sergeant Hillis.
So 11 victims.
11 victims. The suspect makes 12, and Sergeant Hillis makes 13. Sergeant Hillis was on the force for 29 years, was looking to retire in the next year or so. He was a Moore Park resident and is survived by his wife and his son. It's a horrific scene in there. There is blood everywhere, and the suspect is part of that.
Yeah, and they said he knew what he was doing. He threw some smoke grenades, and he had the magazine, because California's got strict gun laws. The magazine had been extended to carry more. And they said he was very methodical in what he was doing. He was not afraid. And being a machine gunner and being in a situation where he has been in firefights, probably it showed. And that right there, Jeff Dean, is a guy who is good friends with the fallen officer. Said he was going to retire next year. Sheriff Jeff Dean's last day is today. At midnight tonight, he's no longer. He's retired. And to have this on your last day, and to lose a friend, and to lose somebody who you spent time with, who was doing his job, putting himself in harm's way to the point where it cost him his life, and to know it's your last day, just has to be. I mean, the emotions going through him and watching him today. And then watching the procession after they took the bodies out, particularly the sheriff, and in a hearse, they took it over to the medical examiner's office, and seeing all the people lining the streets and saluting, and the cars pulling over and doing that, it was emotional. I mean, as a human being, you can't but get choked up on something like that. And it was, again, an awful situation. And then, you wonder why you're not seeing it all over the news 24/7. And part of the reason is because, first of all, it's California. California's got already strict gun laws. It's a handgun. It's not an AR-15. It's not probably a white supremacist, but somebody who struggled with mental illness. So you can't blame Trump for that. And so there's nothing to see here as far as the big establishment media goes, because there's no story to sell. There's no, we don't have to take it this way, that way. We don't have any kind of agenda. There's nothing to see here. And that's sad. That's sad. It is. It's sad that this happens. It is. And it will happen because as human beings, we can be awful. Go back through history. Go back through history and see things on how countries, civilizations treated one another. Right? Sacrifices, things like that. Go back and look. It's not the gun. We as human beings can be awful. And sometimes we as human beings are broken. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from you. Let's lighten it up a little bit. Sometimes you just got to lighten it up, right? You just got to take a deep breath. You got to lighten it up. And some of you out there may be looking for a job. I have a job for you coming up that you're going to absolutely love. At least some of you are. But it takes a certain skill set to get this gig. And wait till you hear what this judge did in Houston, because it's insane. He was not happy about Tuesday night's election. Let's just say he didn't win. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. I am going to sleep like a baby this weekend. Tonight, I will sleep well. I've been traveling. I've been doing so much, and I need rest. My Pillow. When I have my Pillow, I get my 5, 6, 7 hours of sleep. This weekend, I can guarantee you, in the 2 days, because I'll probably take a nap here and there, I'm going to try to get 15, 20 hours of sleep. Oh, yeah. Count on it. Normally, that's a week for me. Since I've got My Pillow, it's usually just a couple days. I'm just talking about my naps. My Pillow is incredible. 100% machine washable and dryable, made in the USA. It is awesome. Are you ready for it? Here's the great thing. Christmas, not too far away. right? So I can see Christmas over there. You're thinking to yourself, man, Chad, you talk about that MyPillow. I like that. What are you guys doing? A BOGO. Buy one, get one free. Ooh, tell me more. So you buy one and you give it as a present. And they're like, oh, my God, thank you so much. All the while, you know, you got one of your own. And they kind of went hand in hand. That's like buying yourself your own Christmas present. I know, right? Do it. You deserve it. 800-983-4975. Or go to MyPillow.com. When you do, use promo code Benson. The best night rest. Check, check, check. Most comfortable pillow. Check, check, check. MyPillow.com. MyPillow.com. Promo code Benson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Welcome to the Alt-Middle, where solutions live and ignorance dies. The Chad Benson Show.
A strange turn of events inside the 313th District Court this morning. Judge Glenn Devlin on the bench just hours after being voted out of office, along with all of his Republican colleagues in the midterm sweep by Democrats, with a question he doesn't normally ask, says public defender Steve Halpert.
What was that question, you ask yourself? So here's a guy who was voted out of office. So Tuesday, the votes comes down. He loses, out of office. I wonder what he's going to do.
If I release you, will you go out and murder anybody? And so if juvenile said no, they were released.
What? That's what he asked the kids. If I release you, are you going to go out and kill somebody? They said no. He said, have a wonderful day. Huh? Yeah. Can you believe that? So he's pissed. He's angry. The Democrats in, all this stuff. And he says, fine, if that's the way you guys want to be, and I'm some sort of horrible person, and I'm a horrible judge, and you don't like my judging, then fine, go ahead. And so he looks at the kids, and these are not like, hey, he's in here for, tagging. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's when you spray paint and stuff like that. People just get you up to date on stuff. Or, stealing hubcaps or something. There's some criminals in there.
In the end, 10 to 12 juveniles, including Halpert's client, were released, many accused of violent offenses. Devlin didn't respond to a request for comment. In a statement, Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg said, quote, we oppose the wholesale release of violent offenders at any age. This could endanger the public.
You think? Absolutely. And the guy who was talking there, who's a client, I think he was really surprised. He was like, what's going on here? And apparently there were two that he did not release because he thought, look, I may be angry, I may be pissed, and who knows, but these two as a negative ghostwriter.
Out of character is how Halpert describes this move. Devlin, a judge since 2010, alluded to the election results.
I just think this was a post-election kind of weird blip. He made a comment that this is obviously what the voters wanted. And I think the implication there is that by electing all Democratic judges, there's this belief that Democratic judges are going to be soft on crime.
So that's it. He's angry. He's taking his ball and he's going home. I'm angry. People are insane. He was bitter Smurf. That's what he was. So this is what you want? Fine. I'll give it to you. But to look at them and go, are you going to kill anybody? And what do you think they're going to say? Maybe. All right. You got to stay. Right? Let's say cake or death. Cake? All right. You can tell how bitter. Elections are bitter. They are bitter. They are. I don't, man, it is sometimes it is bitterness, but you're dealing with people. Well, let me ask the question though. So he's bitter, right? What if one of these kids goes out and kills somebody? What if one of these kids goes out and commits another crime? Allegedly, potentially. What if they do something like that? Shouldn't he be held responsible? I mean, he's not going to be a judge anymore by the sounds of it because he's out. I don't know if he'll ever run again, but shouldn't somebody have stepped in along the way and said, maybe we need somebody to come over into this courtroom here and maybe take a look around and see what's going on as a just in case. Just saying. Just throwing it out there. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet. If this is what they want, fine. Everybody's free and everybody's not guilty. Woo! What do you think of apples that are those apples? Woo! Surprised you didn't moon everybody? Wouldn't that have been awesome? That's when I started reading, I'm like, okay, what does he do? He's letting people go. Oh, he's going to moon people. Nope. That may be the last day. And he still has a couple months, by the way, before he's out. So be prepared, Houston. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from you. Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
He said, quote, "Dear Mr. President, at your request, I'm submitting my resignation." Now, sources tell us that request didn't come from the president himself. It came rather from his chief of staff, John Kelly, in a phone call to Sessions first thing after Election Day. Now it's Sessions' former chief of staff who will take his job, Matt Whitaker. Also, that makes him in charge of Robert Mueller's investigation.
Yes, who is this guy? Who's Matt Whitaker? What's this guy all along with this guy? Well, he's an interesting character, to say the least. Born in Des Moines. I call it Des Moines. You call it what you want. Previously served Department of Justice under Bush and ran as a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in Iowa. He lost. He's done some stuff, and he's an interesting character. And I think the reason that Trump likes him so much is the fact is when Sessions, when they talked about this on numerous occasions, that Sessions and him would go in there and they would talk about the Russia investigation. This guy kind of stood out because every time they said, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you can't do this, he would nod his head no, or yeah, well, we should get rid of this thing. And he'd be like, yeah. And I think Trump kind of liked that. He's a lawyer. He's already said, I'm not recusing myself from this. And he's been very vocal about the way that the FBI handled Hillary Clinton and the politicizing of that, both negative and positively, as far as the way that Comey went out and did some of the things he did and some of that other stuff. And also been very vocal about the way this Russia investigation has gone and how the scope got way too big. And I think Trump feels like now he's got an ally, and it's going to be interesting to see, because already they're saying he needs to recuse himself. This is obstruction of justice. And away we head. He's put out a statement.
Whitaker is a person who openly expressed some concerns about the special counsel. Rod Rosenstein, the man he replaces overseeing Mueller, has said time and again Mueller is not on a witch hunt and is by and large thought to protect the special counsel. For his part, Whitaker released a statement saying that he is committed to leading a fair department with the highest ethical standards that upholds the rule of law. It remains to be seen what kind of relationship Whitaker will have with Bob Mueller. Pierre Thomas, ABC News, Washington.
Yeah, and that's just it. What is going to happen? Is there going to be a lot of fighting? I think what Trump wants, and I think what a lot of people want. I did one of my videos today. You can check it out on Facebook and Chad Benson Show TV on the old YouTube as well. And a lot of people are commenting, people I know that lean to the left, who are just they're over this, and they feel like one of my good friends who's uberly progressive, and we've talked about this on more than a few occasions, where he thought it got out of control. And with these investigations, they can, because if you don't give people parameters to stay in, like with coloring, you got to stay in the lines, right? Well, if you don't tell them they have to stay in the lines and there's no lines to stay in, they're going to go do anything they want. And that's what a lot of people felt like this. It was more, I understand the witch hunt. I want the investigation done for what it was supposed to be. Was there collusion? Was there some sort of nefariousness that went on with the campaign in Russia? Was that real? I'm good with that. It became more about we're just here to catch. And it really doesn't matter how we catch. And when you tell everybody you need to recuse yourself, you need to get yourself out of this, you need to stay away from this, you need to, I think a lot of times what you're saying to a human being is that you're untrustworthy. We can't trust you. We can't believe you. We think you're dishonest. Period. Case closed. And this is where both sides are, right? You know, you've got Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and all of this stuff, and there's no way that they can be, you know, objective and any of this, and you guys are all bad, and you guys are putting out what you want to do, and there's no way that you can have any kind of integrity in what you're doing. And then the other side of things, you've got somebody here who's voiced displeasure and the way that this thing has gone down, and you're saying to him, no, you can't. So both sides have a part to essentially say, look, you know, we don't trust any of this. And that's my thing with this process with Russia and all of these investigations is who's going to believe whatever comes out of this? Are you honest? If you're on the right and they find something, you're going to scream deep state. You're going to scream it's all a setup. It's rigged. If you're on the left and nothing comes out of it, it's going to be obstruction of justice, and it's all rigged, and this is how people continue to get away with stuff. Everybody's above the law if you're in politics. That is what people are going to say. So at this point in time, it doesn't really matter what comes out of this unless there's just something that is so egregious, and it's so easy to see. Then the way I look at it is you're not going to believe anything, and away we head.
Getting rid of the guy that recused himself, the guy who allowed the naming of a special prosecutor, Mr. Mueller, could be itself seen as obstruction because he's basically seeking revenge.
Right, I feel like this is the point. That this deal
pulling
feels
apart
like
the whole apparatus created by Rosenstein and initiated by Sessions himself. So what did you do wrong? You fired me for cause. What was my cause? I created this investigation.
And you know, I think a lot of people, I think the relationship would have been better between the two. If he would have said, I'm going to recuse myself, Sessions would have said, but here are the parameters you need to stay in, and you can do anything inside these parameters, and I'm not going to get involved whatsoever, and I'm going to stay on the sidelines, but I'm going to set up these rules. This is the parameters you stay in, and that's it. And then we move on. I think that would have been better. But what ended up happening is that didn't happen. And because that didn't happen, we're in a situation now where we have, and a lot of people out there on both sides have felt like, hey, at times this does seem to be a witch hunt. And while he's indicting people and getting guilty confessions from people, it has nothing to do with Russia, and all to do with their past.
The president had signaled for a long time that he didn't want Jeff Sessions to be the attorney general any longer. And he finally, after the midterm elections, actually took the step of firing him. And so we need to find out more about the reason that he was fired. But we also need to make sure that the Mueller investigation is protected, that it's adequately funded, unlike the position that Matthew Whitaker seemed to take, that Bob Mueller can continue to do his work.
Well, adequately funded. That's what a lot of people are worried about, that he's going to set these really stringent parameters, and on top of that, he's going to choke off the funding. And Bob Mueller's already starting to write his final report from what I'm hearing and a lot of people are hearing. So I don't think there's a lot of time left in this. So this isn't the middle of this. This isn't 8 months ago, 9 months ago. I don't think Trump's going to fire him. I don't think this guy's going to fire him. I think this guy may come in, and if he does fire him, I'm going to step back and I'm going to go, you know what? You should have let it play its course out, that maybe there is something fishy here, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to automatically assume that this guy is going to go in there and do something. Because remember when Sessions took over, a lot of people thought Sessions was going to step in and he didn't. He didn't. Recused himself immediately. So we'll see what takes place, but this is what people are freaking out about. And my question all along is, are you going to believe any of it anyways? Are you going to believe any of it anyways? My answer to you is no, you're not. You're not going to believe it. You're just not going to believe it. If you're on the right and they find something, it's all a bunch of BS, deep state. If you're on the left, it's because Trump maneuvered people inside of there to make sure that Mueller had no opportunity to find out anything. Look at all the guilty pleas he's got, and it's all a lie, and this is the way Trump gets away with something. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Following the story today, Thousand Oaks, borderline bar, 12 dead, not counting the shooter, who was a 28-year-old former Marine who had done a few tours in Afghanistan. People are wondering if he suffered from PTSD. It was a horrible, horrific incident that took place, and throughout the day, we're going to be touching on this. It was just people out there enjoying themselves, and within moments, it was out of nowhere, in comes a shooter.
This maniac came in and started shooting people for no reason at all. These people have never hurt anybody. He had a handgun. I could tell it was allowed, maybe a 44, maybe a little smaller, but looked up and he was moving to the right. He shot the front doorman, bouncer, just a young man. And then he shot the cashier, just a young girl.
Yeah, it's just awful, horrible. I was watching a person this morning who was searching for his son, and they had one of those apps where you can see where the phone is because it was over 18 night at the bar in Thousand Oaks, and he could tell the phone was inside of there. And he was talking to Alison Camerado on CNN, and he was hoping that just in the midst of everything, because there was still hope that somehow that his son had got out, just dropped the phone, but come to find out a few hours later that he was one of the ones that was killed, and a horrible, horrible thing. And we're learning more about him. Suspect in this shooting is apparently was once a machine gunner in the Marines, and he had a history of domestic disturbances, including April of this year, where police were called out to his house because he kicked in several doors in his house and his mother's house where he was living, punched in the walls, kicked in parts of the walls, broke a bunch of furniture. They brought out a mental health professional, and at that time, they said that they did not believe that he should be held on a 5150. And what happened? Don't know. PTSD. Obviously, that is where people are going to look at. How did he get the gun? Did he obtain it legally? It looked like he did, but he did modify it so it could hold more bullets. It was a Glock. So this will be discussed going forward, and how we deal with our veterans who come home who struggle with PTSD. And, what do we do? I mean, if you're going to look at somebody who's got a poster child, if you will, of what this looks like with mental illness and these kind of things, where people who come back from something have suffered something, whether it be in war or elsewhere, and they spiral out of control. Everybody's saying he was a loner, he was mean at times, he had other issues, and you could. This is it right here. In saying that, what do you do? Because we are America, we're freedom. We can't just come in and say we think something's wrong with you. We're taking everything away from you. You walk that fine line, and then something like this happens, and you look, and you're like, just like Parkland, check, 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 check. All those boxes were checked. What happened? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. ChadBenson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Running with scissors sounds great compared to this.
Say what?
The National Institutes of Health has a job posting for a contractor who can, I'm quoting here, acquire, develop, and produce marijuana and nicotine research cigarettes of varying strengths. Someone who can, quoting again, acquire hard-to-find controlled and uncontrolled drug compounds and has the capability to ship these compounds to research investigators. So, if you know how to score weed, which the feds consider illegal, roll good joints, and ship them across state lines, there's more information on the website FBO, that's federalbusinessopportunities.gov.
You want to get high?
You can do it legally. Kind of, but not really, but maybe, kind of, sort of, whatnot. And now you can be part of the solution to whatever problem that is. But if you can roll a tight one, there's a job for you. I wonder what that costs. What that pays. So what do you think, 100? Right? With benefits. So you may be getting paid 60 grand? With benefits? Now, do you have to use your own money or do you get an expense account? Somebody tweeted that earlier. I was talking about that. Is there an expense account with that? I don't know if there's an expense account with that. That's a good question. Because they're not going to ask you to spend your own money, right? But then are you worried that you're going to, because their whole thing is like, can you procure some certain things? Ooh, I don't know. That's what we're doing nowadays, kids. That's what we're doing. It's the weed. It is the weed. Speaking of weird, wacky, and weed, we head over to the Dutch because a man isn't very happy with something, and he's identifying as something else, and he wants the courts to tell him it's okay.
Emil Rattlebon's doc says he's got the body of a 45-year-old. He's really 69, and he argues that if transgender people are allowed to change their sex, then he should be allowed to change his date of birth. He's now gone to court and is suing his town's local government after they refused to amend his age on official documents.
I like that. So here's my question to you, producer Phil. We'll need a ruling on this. If you can say that you are transgender, so you identify as a girl, as a guy, as a Z, whatever it is, shouldn't you be able to say that you're trans age?
Sure.
Legally? That's what I think so, too. How serious is this guy?
He adds his move would even be good for society, as he would be renouncing his Social Security payments until he reaches his new retirement age again.
Why not? I love it. Do it. That feels good. Go for it. And one of the things he talked about is he doesn't want to lie. So when he goes on to Tinder, he says, if I put 69, I get nothing. I put 49, I'm crushing it. So he doesn't want to lie. He wants to be honest about that. And I applaud him for that. And damn it, if you feel like you're 27 and you're 47, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. I'm 100% behind this. Because if we can identify as anything we want, why can't we identify legally, according to the courts, as a 27-year-old or a 47-year-old, if indeed you happen to be 60, 70, or 80? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You see, kids, that's pretty smart. Here's some things that aren't smart. Right? These are a few things. You're short-staffed, and you've got your cousin who you don't really trust working with you just because, quite frankly, they're a buffoon. And they mess everything up. But you've looked everywhere. That's not smart, because the everywhere you haven't looked is the last place you need to and the only place you will ever look again. What is smart? ZipRecruiter.com/Benson. Boom! Winner, winner. Let me tell you about ZipRecruiter. They don't actually just depend on the candidates finding you, because that's just old school. No. They're new school. They're big time. They got powerful matching technology that identifies thousands of resumes that really go and say, hey, we've identified these people with the right skills, education, experience for the job that you're looking for. We've invited them to apply. They're doing that. We're highlighting even the best of the best. You're going to get that qualified candidate. Boom, like that. In fact, ZipRecruiter, #1 rated by employers in the U.S., according to Trustpilot. So kids, why did I give you out ZipRecruiter.com/Benson? Because you can now try it for free. Post your job for free right now. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/Benson. That's ZipRecruiter.com/BENSON. ZipRecruiter.com/Benson. Absolutely the best. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. ChadBenson. You can tweet at us. Check us out at Chad Benson Show TV. And you can also go to the old Facebook, put up lots of videos all the time, kids. We love it when you participate. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
They entered the location, and I can tell you there are multiple fatalities, multiple injuries. Among the victims is one of our sheriff's deputies that responded in that initial call, as well as the shooter. So right now the scene has been made safe. Our investigators are in there, and it's really in the preliminary stages of piecing all this together to determine the sequence of what happened, how things went down.
And like that, lives changed in an instant. A horrible evening at a bar in Thousand Oaks, California. Uber, upper scale community, Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks, Calabasas, all right there. About an hour outside of Los Angeles, in between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles. Very well-to-do area. It was 18 and over at the borderline last night. It's a country western bar. And out of nowhere, a guy burst in and starts shooting, and it was carnage.
I just started hearing these big pops, pop, pop, pop. There was probably 3 or 4. I hit the ground. I look up. The security guard's dead. Or I don't want to say dead, but he was shot. He was down. And the gunman was throwing smoke grenades all over the place. I saw him point to the back of the cash register, and he just kept firing. I ran out the front door. I hear chairs being thrown out the window. People were trying to get out the window. And the gunman went behind the cash register. There was probably 12 shots before I got out the front door.
The shooter's been ID'd. He's a former Marine, 28 years old, had a few run-ins with police. 11 victims are confirmed dead. Awful. A sheriff's officer was killed, 29-year veteran. He's going to retire next year. And the shooter took his own life. They had a run-in with him earlier this year. And mental health. I mean, this is a guy who toured Afghanistan. He'd won 10 medals, but people had said, his neighbors, that his mother had feared for herself because he had moved back in. She had feared for him, that he may harm himself. I don't know if she knew that this would happen. I doubt it. But they did have a run-in earlier this year with him.
They called out our crisis intervention team, our mental health specialist, who met with him, talked to him, and cleared him, didn't feel that he was qualified to be taken under 5150, and he was left at that scene last April.
And now what? Earlier in the day, there was a father, Jason Kaufman, I believe his son's name is Cody, who was at there, and he was on with Allison Camerado on CNN, and he was frantic, trying to figure out about his son, trying to figure out what was going on, because his son's phone, they had one of those apps, and they knew the phone was in there, and that he knew that he was in there, and but couldn't get a hold of him, in hopes and prayers that his son was still alive. And
I talked to him last night before he headed out the door. First thing I said was, please don't drink and drive. Last thing I said was, son, I love you.
And it is just awful, because he found out, as all of this was going on in the interviews, that his son had actually passed.
How much I love, how much I miss him. Oh, God.
Just absolutely. I mean, it's human beings. Why? A couple people that were inside of there last night were also in the Route 91 shooting, the Jason Aldean concert last year. Why? What happened? Well, PTSD is obviously some of the things they're going to be talking about, looking at this guy. Did he struggle with PTSD? Neighbors, people who knew him, his roommates when he was discharged in 2013, and he went back to school to university. He went to Cal State Northridge. His roommate said he was mean. It was mean. He was a loner. He liked to dance. They said he would go into the garage, he would turn music up, and he would just dance, and people would look at him, and they'd open the garage, and he'd scream at them. And, obviously PTSD is going to be the thing. What did he experience? He was a machine gunner, apparently, in the Marines. He did some tours in Afghanistan. What happened there? I mean, it's one of those things where it's a horrific situation, but if you were to draw up a perfect profile of what you're looking for somebody who's starting to lose the plot, I think this might be the guy.
I understand that was part of the discussion when the deputies went out to the call with the crisis team that felt he might be suffering from PTSD, basing that the fact he was a veteran and had been in the Corps.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those things where what do you do? And unlike the last shootings, unlike what we've seen at Parkland and obviously what took place a little over a week and a half ago at the synagogue in Pennsylvania, the difference between this is this is California. Super gun control, right? I mean, we're gun control. We're gun control the hell out of it. He modified his Glock to carry more, but it's also a handgun. So this wasn't an AR-15. This wasn't anything like that. Didn't seem to be any kind of hatred behind. They're going to look at all of his stuff. We're going to go through his social media. What did he have? What didn't he have? So there's not the political aspect. And I was telling producer Anthony earlier, my thing is this morning is how fast it went in and out of the news on the CNNs and a bunch of the other things, because there was no there was no politics. You can't blame Trump for this because this guy obviously was suffering from something based on what a lot of people are reporting, neighbors, people that knew the guy, his roommates and stuff, his mother. So it's, what do you do? And that's the big thing. It's like if you're going to draw up somebody and say this right here, this is what you draw up. But then what do? You go out, you see the guy, you worry. And I saw somebody today even kind of puts his back on Trump, saying, well, the minute he got in one of the things he did is he took away the thing that Obama had put in during his time that takes away guns from people who are mentally disturbed. And it was one of those things where even the ACLU and several other liberal organizations were against it because it went way too far. It went way too far because it would say basically is if you were depressed 15 years ago, that essentially they can come in and take your gun away and you may be normally fine. And there's no way and no recourse to get your gun back. And all it takes is a complaint. So it's another one of those things where we walk the fine line. But I noticed that the reality was the coverage wasn't there because the politicking wasn't there. This was a tragedy. And PTSD might be to blame for it. But politically, what? No, yeah. Politically, I guess there's not a lot. Just, you send out your kudos and we're sorry and great work for all the people there that are on the scene and the officer that died, 29-year veteran who, after Columbine and after Virginia Tech, they changed all of the rules because during Columbine and during Virginia Tech, what you saw the police and SWAT and everybody, what they did, the first thing they did was set up a perimeter. Well, if somebody's going to kill a bunch of people and they're in an area and you're setting up a perimeter, you're not coming in, so I can do whatever I want inside of here until you decide at that time that you want to come in. But at first you're going to set a perimeter, and they said that's not going to work. So now it's you go and you engage. And Ron Hellis went and engaged, and he lost his life. He spoke to his wife minutes before, said where he was going, and then went and engaged the shooter, who eventually ended up taking his own life. And it is horrible.
For 11 victims, I will not count the suspect as a victim, the suspect, and then Sergeant Hellis.
So 11 victims.
11 victims, the suspect, 12, and Sergeant Hellis makes 13. Sergeant Hellis was on the force for 29 years, was looking to retire in the next year or so. He was a Moore Park resident, and is survived by his wife and his son. It's a horrific scene in there. There is blood everywhere, and the suspect is part of that.
And that right there is the sheriff. His name is of Thousand Oaks, Jeff Dean, or Ventura. He is good friends, workout buddies, pals. He was breaking up on more than a few occasions, talking about his fallen comrade who he was good friends with, and he was devastated. You could see it on his face. And on top of that, at midnight tonight, Jeff Dean retires as sheriff. He's done. So you think today's your last day, you're going to get the golden watch, you're going to have a party or something like that. And then to have this happen is just awful. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. You know, yesterday we talked a bit about this. We're going to touch on this in a minute. This whole thing with Acosta and the president that went really just kind of south. And then, you know, you had the lunacy of this. Yesterday was, I don't even know how you describe it, but a blank show with Trump and Jim Acosta from CNN. And we're going to discuss the predecessor to President Trump, and how transparent was he or wasn't he? And was there anything like this with him? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Love hearing from you. I like to eat. I'm not going to lie to you guys. And I like meat. I do. You like meat, Chad? Well, I got something for you. It's called ButcherBox. ButcherBox is incredible. Last night I had some pasta and I used the ground beef. And I'll tell you this, producer Phil, the noodles were getting in the way of my ground beef is the best way to describe that. Like, get out of here, noodles. I want my ground beef that I put in here. And I made pizza sauce. I made spaghetti sauce with it. It's incredible. What is ButcherBox? Well, they're going to send meat, the best meat, premium cuts, less than $6 a meal, that are grass-fed, grass-finished. They've got chicken. You got beef. The chickens are huge. Massive chicken breasts. Like, the breasts are huge. They're like, wow, are those augmented? No. Free-range, organic, heritage pork. And what's different between theirs, you know, the other white, it's far from the other white meat. Their pork is sourced, actually. So what happens is they keep all their fat and flavor, and that's what you want. Here's what they're doing for you right now. Join today. Get a subscription. Again, less than $6 a meal. It's free. It comes straight to you, so you have to go anywhere. You're going to get $20 off and free bacon for the life of your subscription, and it's so inexpensive. And the meat is so beyond good. You have no idea. Go to butcherbox.com/Chad. That's butcherbox.com/Chad. You're going to love it. Butcherbox.com/Chad. At Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. ChadBenson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Take one giant step to the left.
Did you ever have anyone embarrass you like this?
One giant step to the right.
That's all that separates you from everything else that came from slime.
You are now in the alt-middle, where it's just right.
Call if you get weird.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
He likely is not going to end it, but he could hinder it. He could, as he suggested, he could try and starve it of funds. He could also say no. If they want to seek an indictment, he could say, I don't think you should. Everything he has said publicly supports exactly what the president's position has been.
Yeah. Dan Abrams right there talking about Whitaker's taking over for Jeff Sessions, who was ceremoniously resigned, dumped, fired, whatever you want to call it yesterday. And the guy that's taking over for him is with Trump essentially 100%. And everybody's already saying this guy's brought in here for one reason, to shut this thing down. From what I understand, the Mueller investigation, he's already started putting together his final report. In the end, you're going to believe what you want to believe. Most people are looking for affirmation. They've already made up their mind. And no matter what Mueller puts inside of there, that he's innocent, that his kids maybe were involved, but he wasn't, that Trump is guilty, whichever way you believe now, you're going to believe. There'll be a few people out there who will go, huh, yeah. But we've already predetermined in our minds what it is. Do I think there's any there? No, but if Mueller comes out and says there's some there, I'm open enough to go, all right, there's there. So we need to address this. But most people, a majority of Americans, A, are tired of this and want it to go away, no matter what happens, either way. And B, have made up their minds of guilt or innocent. Most Americans. People want him to recuse himself. This Whitaker, like, this guy's coming in. He's totally a Trump, he's a Trump lackey. He's going to do anything that Trump asks him to do. He'll take a bullet for Trump kind of thing. And this could be one of those things. And, which I think is unfair. Just because somebody believes in something doesn't mean automatically that they're willing to do anything. Like what you're saying is this guy has no morals whatsoever. He has no kind of standards for his life that he lives by. He'll just do whatever the president asks him to do. And I think that's unfair on either side of the aisle. Some Republicans are concerned, though, and they're like, maybe this guy should step away.
You are seeing some Republicans at least voicing some concern. Look, you have, incoming Utah Senator Mitt Romney stressing in a tweet that the Mueller investigation needs to be allowed to be proceeded unimpeded. And you have had, as there's been concerns that the president could take this step, there have been a lot of Republicans who have drawn, some red lines saying that Mueller needs to be allowed to do his work here without the Trump administration getting in his way. The question is now whether they're going to take any action to try and make that actually come to fruition.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this guy is what I believe he's going to do. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'm going to let everybody know this. Unlike other hosts out there who believe that they're never wrong, I'm a human being and I will make mistakes. But this is just a gut feeling because we don't know what's going to happen. Because if we did, we would all be in Las Vegas making millions of dollars, and then we're on to our tiny islands. If we could predict the future, is I think he's going to limit the scope, rein it back in, give him some sort of timeline. He wants this thing done. And kind of push it to its end. I don't think he's going to stop it, but I believe that, I believe that's what's going to happen. And everybody else will have their own opinions, and some are already freaking out.
Getting rid of the guy that recused himself, the guy who allowed the naming of a special prosecutor, Mr. Mueller, could be itself seen as obstruction because he's basically seeking revenge.
Right, I feel like this is the point, that this
deal feels like the whole apparatus created by Rosenstein and initiated by Sessions himself. So what did you do wrong? You fired me for cause. What was my cause? I created this investigation.
Well, that's the way they look at it, that Sessions is part of the problem, and for them, Sessions was the right thing, even though nobody could stand him on the left. He was doing the right thing, and he was the only thing protecting Mueller. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting moving forward. All right, kids, Jim Acosta and Trump, they got into it yesterday. Very interesting what took place later on in the evening. Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
So yesterday, Trump came out. Here it is the day after the election, right? So he comes out and he gives this long news conference. It was very interesting, actually, to watch. And as news conferences go with Trump, they can be very interesting. And, we'll touch on the Jim Acosta thing. But a lot of people, before Trump, there was Obama. And I remember there was a lot of issues with Obama, not only with Fox News. At one time, he tried to ban them. And the other news outlet said, no, we're not going to do this. If Fox isn't here, we're not carrying any more of this stuff. So they kind of relented. And, of course, there was the Rosen thing that went totally south with them, the spying on journalists, stuff like that. There were some real issues with Obama, but it really wasn't talked up much about. And the press kind of gave Obama a pass. And one of the things that they did is everything was manuscript. Everything was perfectly scripted. Obama would hold a press conference, and it was singularly about one thing. You want to have a conversation with him? It's about the economy. That's it. Trump's a free-for-all, and that sometimes gets him in trouble. And Trump's attitude and the fact that he's always ready for a fight does as well. But on the other side of things, and remember how transparent Obama was going to be, and he was anything but transparent. Anything but transparent. We kind of know that, though. On the other side of things, Trump is always at times willing to talk with people, but just because you're going to get the conversation, it doesn't mean you're going to get the conversation you want to have. And yesterday, in this press conference, after he came out and started talking about, hey, you know what? We lost last night, but the House, but I think it's going to be good for us. He tried to put a spin on it that was good and talked about how he thinks he can work with Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, and he thinks it may even be better because he thinks he can get some stuff done where otherwise he couldn't get things done. Then it went into, okay, let's start talking about stuff, and, well, this is where it kind of started to go wonky.
There are many things we can get along on without a lot of trouble, that we agree very much with them and they agree with us. I would like to see bipartisanship. I'd like to see unity. And I think we have a very good chance of, and maybe not on everything, but I think we have a very good chance of seeing that. Go ahead.
So there you go. That sounds all right. That sounds right. Okay, so then Jim Acosta, who has been accused by more than just a few people in the Trump administration, people as well as the White House press correspondents and several other people of, at times, loving the fact that he's an antagonist and Trump's kind of foil, kind of enjoys it, I think. He gets the microphone, starts to ask them questions.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to
try to keep?
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally.
Okay, so you're like, oh, okay, well, there you go. They're kind of getting into it. Then Jim continues to push it. Now, remind you, you've got a bunch of people in there that are going to be asking him questions. You've got the usual press corps, but you've got a lot of other people that are there to ask him questions. It's not just the regular press corps that follows him around.
I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true.
But
they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood.
They're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
Ooh, so it's starting to get testy. Now, he's asked a few questions, and this is kind of where it goes. And Trump, I 100% believe he steps over the line when he starts saying stuff like this. At the same time, I see grandstanding by not wanting to give the microphone up.
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was
enough.
going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
Oh. Rude, terrible person. He wasn't finished.
I think that's unfair. You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts.
Well, I'm not a big fan of yours either. So
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said
you aren't the best,
Mr. President. You repeatedly over the course.
Okay, just sit down, please. When you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people.
And that's a step over the line, and more than a few occasions, it drives me crazy that Trump continues to do stuff like this. But the grandstanding, it felt like that. They tried to take his microphone away. He didn't want to give it up. And, this is the clash. And what happened yesterday, this wasn't about journalism. This was Jim Acosta did a lot what the Republicans did to, especially the Fox reporters did to Obama. They're going to ask him some tough questions. After a while, he doesn't want to answer him. And it gets frustrating. I get that. It continued to go. They continued to argue. Eventually, last night, Jim Acosta tweets out, the U.S. Secret Service just asked for my credential to enter the White House. As I told the officer, I don't blame him. I know he's just doing his job. So they took his credential away. Now, CNN is not barred, just Jim Acosta. It looks petty. It does. I get the arguing, the fighting. I absolutely understand that it's crazy. It is. It is crazy that we're in this situation like this. Is it an attack on the free press? No. And I was talking to somebody last night, and I said, let me tell you, because they were like, oh, they are the enemy of the people. And I said, no, first of all, let's just for a second step back and say there's journalism and there's opinion. There's journalism and there's opinion. You watch MSNBC in the morning, you watch Morning Joe and several of these other people. You watch Fox, you watch a lot. They're opinion makers. Some of them used to be journalists. Some of them still proclaim to be journalists, but they've gotten to the point where it's no longer about the who, what, when, how, and why. It's now changed. The business has changed, and so clicks are important, and so you've got to be a little bit more vocal, and they've become that way. And I said, don't confuse people who are real journalists. I have a couple friends who are in the White House press corps, and they're journalists. They have their opinions, but you would never know what their opinions are because they don't write opinion pieces. They put some stuff out there, and they go on. But they also realize, look, they're not the Jim Acostas of the world. They're not making seven figures. They're not any of that. And at this point in time, at times you have to push the envelope. And that's what journalism is facing right now because we've gotten to the point, and part of this is on us, is we no longer want the who, what, when, how, and why. We've stopped that. We want affirmation, not information. So we'll go to the places we want that are going to be skewed to us, and that's how journalism is becoming. It is. And I don't like what took place yesterday. I think it was definitely grandstanding by Acosta, and I don't like the way that Trump handled it and stopped saying that they are the enemy of the people when they're not the enemy of the people. They're not. But we have to start to differentiate journalism and opinion makers. I'm an opinion person. I'm not a journalist, right? I go to journalists to get some information. I look up numbers. I do those kind of things. I put all of it together. I give you my opinion. I try to give you as fair, with all of the numbers and everything I can put together, a fair picture of what something is, and I give you my opinion. In the end, if you're curious about something, you go find it on your own. But I'm not a journalist and never proclaimed to be. People say, and that's just it. There's media and there's journalism. And the lines now have become extremely blurred. And you'll get people who are journalists now, or used to be journalists, who are opinion makers because that's what they realized they had to do. And they're no longer about reporting the news as this is it. You make up your own mind. Now they're going to be out there doing things much differently because that's kind of where we have taken the world that we live in. We have all the information we've ever dreamed of all the time. And we can go to the information that makes us feel good and affirms our belief. And that's what we do. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Following along today, the horrific shooting in Thousand Oaks, California. You know what Thousand Oaks is. So you've got this beautiful community, Calabasas, Thousand Oaks, Newberry Park, Moore Park, into Oxnard, Ventura. Just a gorgeous area. An hour between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles, you find a very upscale area. Had a guy who walked in last night, an ex-military Marine, did some tours in Afghanistan, former machine gunner, and for whatever reason, he picked this place. And we don't know the motive, but what we do know is that he's definitely had some issues. Earlier this year, they were called out to a situation at his house in Newberry Park, where he had he destroyed parts of his house, his mother's house, which he was living in, and they were worried about him. But when the police arrived and they decided maybe we need to see if this guy has some serious issues that we should be concerned with,
they called out our crisis intervention team, our mental health specialist, who met with him, talked to him, and cleared him, didn't feel that he was qualified to be taken under 5150, and he was left at that scene last April.
His mother had been concerned on more than a few occasions, worried for herself as well as her son that he would harm himself or somebody. Last night, what made him snap? What made him go and take his Glock, which he had modified how many it could hold in the magazine? And this is California, extremely gun control. Right, they love the gun control, and he went in there. And why borderline? Why last night? That will be, I'm sure, over the next 24 hours or 48 hours start to become clearer. But he killed 11, not including himself, and it is, I think it was 13 including himself, but 11 victims that were just there, and a sheriff officer of 29 years who showed up to engage in the fight with him, who was killed, Ron Hollis, and just a horrible evening indeed. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Love hearing from you. Some of you are tweeting in about Jim Acosta. Some of you, and if you're just open-minded enough to understand that I think what Trump did and the way he engaged him, I think, is beneath the office. I also think that Jim Acosta, both of them had their part to play in this. Right? You don't lose a card. You don't lose your liberal card or your conservative card if you can go, yeah, I think what Trump did was wrong, or I think what Acosta did was. They're not taking anything away. Both had a part to play in this. And my thing from jump yesterday, that he didn't want to ask a question. He wanted to engage. And Trump was all too eager to do that. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. ExpressVPN. People say, what's a VPN? Virtual private network. What it does is it makes everything easy for you. It's a great way to protect yourself from hacking. It is so awesome. If you're worried about being tracked in all this day and age with social media and all of these kind of things and everybody looking for information, protect yourself, and you do it with the virtual private network. It's easy to use. It seamlessly runs in the background of your computer, your phone, your tablet, and it is a literally one click, boom, you're protected. Secures and anonymizes your internet browsing, encrypting your data, hiding your public IP address. It's cheap, and it's $7 a month. It's like 20 cents a day to protect yourself. 25, something like that, to protect yourself in a way that it's so much better. Number one rated by Tech Radar. And here's what they're doing for you. And if you're serious about protecting yourself, if you want to make sure that you can protect your identity and all of these kind of things, but, just your information, this is what you do. Here's what they're doing for my listeners. 3 months free when you join today. Go to expressvpn.com. That's expressvpn.com/Benson. 3 months free with a year package. expressvpn.com/Benson. Check it out. You're going to be extremely impressed with what you can do. Plus, you can go on and you can watch European Netflix and stuff like that. Yeah, it's different. It's totally different. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Serving up talk radio medium rare and dripping with irony. It's Chad Benson.
I like interesting things. My buddy in the UK said, dude, you got to check out this company. They're amazing. And I started looking at this company, and I was like, these guys are just incredible. So we decided, hey, let's get these guys on the phone. Joining us now is Ben Davies. He is one of the founders of Glint. And it's amazing what you guys are doing, because I love the financial industry. For years, I traded all kinds of currencies, precious metals, and everything. And then for years being in talk radio, it's gold, 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 gold. And I knew a lot of people that had gold. They didn't really know what to do with it. And then lo and behold, you guys come along and explain to everybody, first of all, why it's important that people have gold. But then a lot of people don't know what to do with it. And you guys came along and voila.
Wow. What an intro. That's amazing. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. So, Glint, we're a financial service technology company. We started in the UK, right here in London, where I'm speaking from across the pond. What Glint has managed to do is take gold and create it as money again, or turn it into money again. So we've taken this moribund asset that sits dusting in a vault all around the world, and we've connected it to the electronic payment system. So with us, everywhere MasterCard is in the world, if you have a Glint MasterCard, you get to spend gold, real gold owned by you, anywhere you want to in the world, anytime.
That's insane. Because there's so many people, they were worried about the world coming to an end, zombie apocalypse, man. Here it comes, zombie. And I thought, and they went out and they buy all this gold, right? And you're like, okay, now what are you going to do with it? Because if we did have a zombie apocalypse and you wanted something, you'd just go take it because you might be the only person. So then they didn't know what to do with it. And then what a brilliant idea. It's the little ideas like this that go a long way in the world.
I think, I mean, obviously we can go to extreme, and I think we'll all be worrying about food more at that point. And I know that when society breaks down, as it has done in some parts of the world, often it's the little things like firelighters and cigarettes that actually have more worth in terms of exchange, because you actually need to light a fire for heat, etc. But look, gold has always been money, and for me, talking about sort of financial apocalypse, we're in a drip financial crisis. The value of money is depreciating all the time, and so it gets harder and harder. I think we'd all agree it's getting harder and harder to maintain your standard of living. We all have to work harder to earn more in order to pay for goods and services. But imagine I could offer you a bank account that had all the facilities of your normal account, but perhaps better because you've got a better user experience, better user interface. But I also said that I could protect your money completely. It could be owned by you, and it couldn't default by sitting in a bank if there was a bank run. And if I could tell you that it will protect your standard of living and maybe even grow it, you would probably think I'd be interested in that. Would you not say, Chad?
Absolutely, man, and I can't wait for you guys to get over here. It's just a very interesting thing, and I love entrepreneurs, and you guys have done something I think that's going to shake up banks and everywhere else. Ben Davies, Glint, I appreciate you coming on today, man, and joining us from over the pond. We'll get yourself some rest there. It's a little bit later, and we'll talk to you again sometime. It's really interesting. Thanks so much.
I'd just like to say one thing, if you give me it. We're going live in the U.S. over the next 3 months, so look.
Okay, will do, man. I appreciate that. It's the Chad Benson Show.